Hello class. Today we're going to learn about clay tiles. We have an upcoming project, so this presentation will also follow with a demonstration on how to actually create the clay tile. This project that we are about to start is focused on the element of art called texture. Now this is a little bit of review since we just finished a project about texture, but again there are two different types of texture. There's the physical texture and the visual texture. The project that we just finished was involving the visual texture, where we were drawing what the animals that we chose would actually look like visually. This project that we're starting next is all about physical texture, so we are actually going to be able to feel the texture within our project. The main vocabulary within this project is called relief texture. A relief texture is a sculpture that is built up from a flat surface. So all three examples beneath are examples of relief texture. You can see that they all have a flat surface. They are protruding from that surface. The first example on this page is the horse example. You can see that the horse's body is actually sticking out from the surface of the block. You can see the texture of the hair, you can see the muscle lines, even the background has texture as well. The middle one is very similar to the tiles we will be doing. It's a square-shaped block that has some kind of mythical creature that is protruding from the surface. And then the final one is the sunflowers, where you can see the actual center of the sunflower. The petals and the stems are all parts that are protruding from the original surface. Now before we get to our actual clay project, there's just three different terms that we need to review. We have covered this before when we've done clay projects, but anytime that you attach any pieces together, you always start with what is called scoring. You score the surface of the clay, and we use our needle tools for that. You have to score what you are attaching and where you're attaching it to. Then you add the slip, which is water mixed with clay, and that acts like the glue of the project. And lastly, once you put the pieces together, you can smooth it out so you don't see the creases of where the two parts meet. Alright, so today we're going to learn how to create a clay tile by adding pieces to the surface, building them up from the flat surface. We've already talked about this before, that type of sculpture is called a relief sculpture. So the materials that you are going to need today are going to be your own chunk of clay. At the table, you will be sharing a cup of slip. Remember, we've talked about how the slip is just water mixed with clay, and it acts like the glue of the project. You are also going to need your own needle tool. We've talked about this in the past, that the needle tool can be dangerous. So we have to remember safety procedures, that this should only be used on the clay project. If you're using it improperly, then you won't get to continue with the clay project. So to start the tile, we first need to break off some of the extra clay. This is going to be to add the details to create a relief sculpture. And I'm going to take the rest of the clay and I'm going to actually squeeze it in between the palms of my hand like a sandwich. So I'm going to cup it together, rotate it, squeeze, rotate, squeeze, rotate, until I get it to about the thickness of a McDonald's cheeseburger. Now I always say this to my students, it's the thickness of a cheeseburger, but it's not actually a cheeseburger, so no, we don't want to eat it. Now I'm going to sit it down on the table. I'm going to use the needle tool to cut out a small square. So I'm pressing it into the clay and drawing all the way around to create a square. My extra clay then I have from cutting can go with my extra clay here to add details later. So now I have my tile, and before I begin building on top of it for the relief sculpture, I need to make sure I write my name and class on the bottom. So I'll write, just to save time, I'll do Miss D, and then you would of course put your class, so I'll just do 4M, pretending we're from Mr. Miller's class. And then I'll flip it over to the front. Now anytime you want to attach two pieces, and we talked about this previously, we want to score and slip. These are two of our vocabulary words. So to score a project, or to score the clay, you take the needle tool and you draw little lines in the surface of the clay of what you're attaching, and also into the surface of where you're attaching it to. This acts almost like a zipper, so when the two pieces meet, they connect like this and they are permanently attached. So then I need to create the slip that's going to glue it together permanently. So yes, I use my finger, I dip it in the slip cup, and I add it on top of where I scored. So on there and on the part that I'm attaching it to, put it face down, push it together, and then it is permanently attached. Now, you guys can build things on top of the tile. So here, maybe for my design, since I've already done a round shape here, I want to do a few rocks along the base. This will be the base of my sculpture. So again, second time, I score. Anytime you attach pieces, you always need to score. Add the slip, push it down. Maybe I'll put one more for my design. Again, score, score, and add the slip. Not only can I build things up on top of the surface of my relief sculpture, but I can also build things down in. So building it on top is called additive. Taking it down in is called subtractive. So I can actually use my tool. Let's say I wanted this to look like grass, the texture of grass next to my rocks. I can take the tool and actually scratch lines into the surface of the clay to look like the texture of grass. But again, I'm going down into the surface instead of raising it up. So I can draw lines for grass and continue with whatever design I want to do. Maybe I want to do some dots on the rocks to give it almost like a rough texture. Whatever you would like to add, you can use the tool for that. Maybe I actually wanted to draw pictures in the surface, so maybe I want to do a little person. I'll just do a little stick figure here in the clay, and I have a person standing on top of the grass. Last thing, you can have things sticking out from the major dimension of the square. For example, let's say I wanted to put a tree next to my person. So I can roll a coil, which we did this last year in 3rd grade. So I roll it in between my hands like I'm making a little snake. I can roll it on top of the paper. Okay, this could be the trunk of my tree. So I score down the base. I score where I'm going to attach it. I add the slip. And I can have the tree next to my person. But again, you can see here, it comes off of the square. It doesn't have to fit within the square. And then I can build off my branches off the side of the tree. Again, remembering to score and slip for everything. Okay, and there I already have a branch for my tree. So you guys will be using this entire class to build your tile out of clay. You only get today to do it, however, because this clay, once it's been sitting out for a little bit, it will start to dry. And since we don't see each other again for a few days, we will not be able to add to it next class. So we're focusing on building it today. So before you come to class, you want to kind of have an idea of what kind of image you want to show on your clay tile.